Stretching isn't going to fix your hip mobility. It's not going to give you any long-lasting changes, and you're going to keep going round and round in circles unless you understand this one little secret. In this video, I'm going to explain what this is and the method I've used to help over 500 people fix this issue, and I'm also going to explain why stretching isn't working. So to begin with, we need to understand what is stretching focusing on, why this doesn't work. So stretching focuses on muscles. We all know this. So if you do yoga stretches or any type of stretches, you typically focus on tight hip flexors, so muscles at the front of the hip, or your glutes at the back of the hip, or any muscles around the hip. And this gives you some short-term pain relief because you stretch the muscle and then it feels nice for a few hours, a few days, but then you have to keep going round and round in circles and you don't get any permanent changes to the range of movement. You have to keep doing these stretches and a lot as well. You have to keep doing them every day or 3 or 4 times a week. The reason this doesn't work is because muscles attach onto bones, and bones actually create the movement. So if the bones aren't moving well, this can cause tight muscles. And so if you're focusing on the muscles, you're not focusing on the root cause of the problem. If you imagine an onion, and an onion's got lots and lots of different layers, the muscles is like the very, very outer layer. And the bones is this meaty bit in the center that actually makes all the difference. It controls everything further out in the layers. And the two bones that we need to focus on to improve your hip mobility is the pelvis and the femur. So the pelvis is just your hips, and then your femur is the bone between your knee and your hips. So let's start off with the pelvis. We can do several things with the pelvis. We can, number one, we can roll it forward and backwards. And you will have seen this with people's postures and different postures you probably might have seen on the internet. So we've got anterior pelvic tilt, which is best described with Instagram models, girls who are sticking their bum out, and they're sticking their bum out because they're rolling their pelvis forward, and so this encourages their, essentially it accentuates the curves of their bum. Then we've got posterior pelvic tilt, which is the opposite. So you will see this as well on people where they're not rolled forward, they're rolled back and they're tucked under and they've got no bum on them whatsoever. So it's not that either of these positions is good or bad, we just need to access both of these different positions. So that is forward and back in that sort of plane. Then we've also got the frontal plane, and that's very, very simple. If you imagine this pen is the pelvis, so the first thing we focused on was rolling forward and back like that, but then the pelvis can also shift laterally like that, and this happens naturally when you're walking. If you, next time you walk in, just think about this and you'll feel it actually happening very, very subtly. So it'll go like this as you take opposite strides and coordinate that with your hands. So we've also got, let's call this lateral movement. So it can move laterally, and then number 3, it can also, so it can move like this, straight onto the camera, roll forward, roll back. It can roll laterally, and then it can also rotate like this, so rotation. Now, specific exercises for this, I've made loads of videos on my YouTube channel that run through all of these, but it's important to understand the concept because, again, this is why stretching isn't doing anything, because if you're not focusing on all these different movements within the pelvis, and you lack the ability to get into different positions here, 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 then that's why you're feeling tight muscles. And if you can sort these issues out and get full range of motion here, so you can control the movement of your pelvis forward and back really cleanly, you can shift it laterally really cleanly, and then you can also rotate it really cleanly, then the muscle issues will sort themselves out. Okay, so go onto my YouTube and check out any hip mobility videos, and they will focus on exercises for this. Okay, number 2 is the femur. And the femur is important because the top of your femur sits into the hip socket. Yeah, so if we've got, let's try draw this without, let's do this very, very simply. A very bad drawing, but imagine this is the femur. Yeah, that's the femur. The hip socket is up here, and the femur will just sit into the hip socket up here. Yeah, and so it rotates in the hip socket, and it can do lots of different things. So the femur, imagine again this pen, it can internally rotate. So I'll just show you here. If we imagine these are your hips, these are your legs, your femur. Femur can internally rotate, so it can go towards your midline and it can rotate inwards, or it can rotate outwards. And this again just happens with normal movements, normal activities. So we need to make sure the femur can internally rotate and externally rotate well. So they're the two main things you need to focus on with the femur. And again, exercises for this, I've got loads on my YouTube channel, but internal rotation and external rotation of the femur. And again, if you go onto YouTube and even just look at exercises for this, these are going to give you way better bang for your buck than stretching tight muscles, because this will clean up the muscle issue and stop them feeling tight. So they're the two main structures. So they're the physical elements of improving hip mobility, or the exercises that you need to focus on. Number two is the mental aspects. Now, what I mean by this is some of your, not limiting beliefs, but incorrect beliefs, down to no fault of yours, but just down to the internet. So the two big things here, we'll talk about the pelvis first, is posture, and this idea that there's good and bad postures. And so that example before, when I was talking about the Instagram model sticking her bum out, some people say this is a bad posture, and that you need to be in a posterior pelvic tilt, where you're the opposite, you have no curve in your back, and you just got a flat back. Whereas an anterior pelvic tilt is more like this. You've got a nice smooth, and then you've got a big dump here where your bum is. So we talk about these two things being, well, essentially, yeah, the anterior pelvic tilt being bad and this one being good, or the other way around, depending on who you speak to. There's no such thing as good as bad postures. Just make sure you're changing your posture and position frequently, and especially when it comes to the pelvis or the hips, don't think you need to untuck or tuck all the time. Just make sure you train these two different positions. It's really that simple, okay? So that's posture. That's definitely to do with the pelvis. And then something to do with the femur is this cue when you're doing leg exercises, or squats in particular, of knees out. So a lot of coaches or PTs will tell you to point your knees out as you're squatting. And the reason, again, this is incorrect is because you're avoiding internal rotation of your femur. Hopefully that makes sense. If coaches are telling you to constantly point your knees out as you squat, your knees will never cave together. So your knees will never come inwards or cave a little bit, which isn't a bad thing at all. And so you will never get the femur internally rotating. And so you lose that movement pattern. You lose that movement pattern, lo and behold, muscles around that area get tight because they're not being taken through their full range of motion, because the bone, the femur, isn't being taken through its full range of motion. Yeah? So if, again, I can draw here, hips, and we've got someone, these are two legs, and someone's squatting and they're being told to knees out all the time. So their knees never come this way, and so we never get the femur internally rotating, which again is a bit like it's a bit like with your arm. If someone just told you, I never want you to bend your arm again, and you just walked around with a straight arm like that, it's literally that ridiculous. But it just sounds a bit more complex, but it's really that basic. The femur is designed to internally rotate, and you need to access that movement. So there are some really key points there that are going to help you massively. And again, in terms of exercises, you can look these up on YouTube, look at my YouTube channel, but the mental aspect there is also really important of your limiting beliefs. So no postures are good or bad. Don't believe this stupid idea that knee cave is bad. Let your knees cave in, improve your internal rotation at your femur. That'll really, really help you. By the way, if you enjoyed that video, YouTube will recommend another one for you up here on the screen somewhere. And if you're interested in working with me one-to-one, just check out the links down below in the description.